An international manhunt is underway for this accused terrorist. 26-year-old Salah Abdeslam led the team of gunmen who opened fire at people in restaurants, bars, and a concert venue in Paris Friday night. 129 people were killed in the attacks at 6 locations. Of the 10 terrorists believed to be responsible, police say 3 survived, possibly escaping in this getaway car loaded with assault rifles. Paris today is a city still in shock and afraid. This woman says, yes, I'm scared. I'm scared for me, for my children, for my family, for my friends. But we have to stay strong and united. It's important.
We're scared, but we know we have to fight back, and the only way to fight back is to keep on living the way we live.
The French government responded by ordering the Air Force to bomb the de facto ISIS capital of Raqqa in northern Syria. And while ISIS has claimed responsibility, the emphasis on the attack originating in Syria obscures the fact that most of the attackers were French and Belgian citizens. The enemy is within. After the Charlie Hebdo and kosher supermarket massacres, CBN News interviewed French conservatives who warned that a stronger attack like last Friday's was a certainty because the French government was still more concerned with political correctness than security. French TV commentator Eric Zemmour was fired after Charlie Hebdo for saying that Muslims should be deported to avoid chaos and civil war. Just recently, Marine Le Pen, the leader of France's right-wing Front National, went on trial for hate speech after she compared Muslims praying in the streets to the Nazi occupation. And after Charlie Hebdo, her former advisor, Emmerich Choprada, got in trouble for saying that France is at war with some French Muslims.
We have to fight very firmly, very strictly against the Islamization of the French society. There is an Islamization process, and we have to stop it clearly.
And after Charlie Hebdo, we heard a similar warning about France's future.
I see civil war, and I'm not a prophet, you know. It's obvious, it's Lebanon.
Civil war, that's clear.
Civil war, as terrible as it would be, civil war is a wrong expression, there would be nothing civil about it.
And what happened Friday in Paris certainly looked a step closer to that. Dale Hurd, CBN News.
Well, maps are out now showing that one of these persons came in as a refugee and came up through Greece and up through the Balkan countries and across Europe into France. So they're coming in as refugees. Well, our CBN News correspondent Abigail Robertson is on the scene now in Paris. What are the French authorities saying? Have you talked to them?
Well, a lot of the Parisians here, you know, the city is a little tense right now. A lot of people are on edge. I've gone to all the spots of the memorials, and if you go to these cafes, the people who live in the neighborhood, they're there, and they all say, you know, we want to be here, we want to be mourning with the people. But, you know, this is very different than the Charlie Hebdo attacks, which I don't think a lot of people realize happened just down the street from the Cambodian Cafe and Lake Caroline. And kind of their sentiment is they felt like, yes, they were deeply saddened by those, but those might have been a targeted one-time incident. But after this, they kind of feel like anyone can be a victim.
Were they singling out young people? It looked like that concert was primarily for the young people, and they were shot. Is that what you've seen?
Well, this has been one of the most disturbing elements for me. I feel like a lot of the attackers are under the age of 30, and if you look at the places that they targeted, a rock concert, a soccer game, and the local beloved neighborhood bars and cafes, places that a lot of people go for a fun Friday night. And if you look at a lot of the victims, they're young. They're under the age of 30. And to me, that's really disturbing that it's young attackers going after people their own age.
Now that you've had a chance to talk to some of the Parisians, what are they doing? Are they angry? Do they say, let's go to war and kill ISIS? Or do they just resign to this trouble? What's the attitude?
You know, a lot of them that I've talked to, they haven't necessarily, they're mourning right now, so they're not necessarily expressing that they want to go to war. They're just kind of saying how they want to stand together with the other people of Paris, They want to show that they're not intimidated after Friday's attacks. They want to be at the memorials. And it's a huge liability for the cops here to have thousands of people gathering at these plazas and kind of coming together. And they're warning the Parisians to stay inside, to sort of avoid big public crowds. But the Parisians are kind of saying, no, we're not afraid. We want to come together and we want to stand together and show the world that kind of we're uniting in support for one another around the city.
Thank you so much. Abigail Robertson reporting from Paris, ladies and gentlemen. The attitude over there, but I really appreciate Hollande. He's a socialist and all the rest of it, but boy, has he come through like a champ. He's come through. The thing that he made a decision on was to keep the audience in the soccer stadium. He could have announced that there was a terror attack and opened the doors and they would have fled out. And if they did, the people were outside waiting to gun them down. Instead of that, the President Hollande didn't say a word of it. He kept them playing, didn't tell the team what was going on. They kept on playing in that soccer stadium. As a result, none of them got killed. There was a bomb outside, suicide bomb. But it was tremendous. And also, he said, look, we're not going to take this lying down. And he's already launched airstrikes against the Islamic targets in Lebanon, and in Syria. He's going after them immediately. And I appreciate that. And I think the world will respond to him and support the French, our strongest. They've probably been the oldest ally of the United States ever. And so our thoughts and prayers are with them. Now, our CBN News terrorism analyst, Eric Stakelbeck, is with us now from Washington. Eric, these are warnings. An attack like this could happen. Was it a surprise or not?
Pat, not a surprise at all. Unfortunately, we all saw this coming. I think especially after the Charlie Hebdo attacks, obviously, this January. This was in the offing for some time, Pat. A number of reasons here. Number one, we've had thousands of Europeans, French, Germans, Brits, Swedes, Danes, leave their comfortable homes there, travel to Iraq and Syria to join ISIS. Now, they are returning now, Pat, a steady trickle back to their home countries. They're battle-tested. They're battle-hardened. At least 1,500 French citizens have left France to go join ISIS. So this is what's going to happen. They go over there, Pat. They train. They get experience. They come back to their home countries with orders to attack. So this was inevitable. It's not the end of it. This may sadly be only the beginning unless Europe gets a handle on its borders.
Eric, General Petraeus said very cogently, he was speaking, I think, at the Council on Foreign Relations or some similar gathering, and he said this is like a festering sore, this thing that's going on in Syria and this ISIS has got to be stopped and got to be put down. Why don't you think the United States is doing anything about it?
President Obama does not have the will to do it, Pat, and I believe before January 2017, when there's a change in office, we're not going to see a different strategy. I think he's made that sadly pretty clear. He wants to manage this ISIS problem until he leaves office, leave it for the next person. I can't get inside his head, but this is part of his whole ideology, it seems, Pat. Frankly, it's a hard left-wing ideology that does not believe in overwhelming military force, that believes that America has been a negative force in the world, that the American military has been a bully. That seems to be the view of our commander-in-chief right now, which is a sad thing. But as you said, President Hollande in France stepping up. This is a great thing. David Cameron is making noise now in Great Britain about stepping up. Pat, you said it in the lead-in. NATO needs to get together. We haven't heard much from NATO in the past few years. They've been largely marginalized. This is the time to get together. History teaches us when a great evil rises, it must be crushed. We need to do to ISIS what we did to the German and Japanese war machines during World War II. Completely destroy them. This is not an 800-pound gorilla, Pat, in the Middle East. Yes, they have this caliphate in the Middle East, but they can be crushed swiftly if the West only commits. If we do not, attacks like we saw in Paris will continue, and they will come here to the United States.
Isn't that how you read the NATO treaty, that an attack against one is an attack against all? Is that not the way they're supposed to read it?
That's supposed to be the way, Pat, since the beginning of NATO. And this is clearly an attack, a declaration of war against France, a declaration of war against the West. You know, when someone tells you they want to kill you, history tells us we should probably listen. This started in 1996, Pat. Osama bin Laden declared war against America. Now, fast forward 2 decades, ISIS is declaring war against America. We are not on war footing, but they are. And declaring, as President Obama has in the past, that the war on terror is over and let's bring the boys home. Well, the bad guys didn't get the memo. They're still very much at war. This is an offensive-minded enemy. And look, here in the United States, Pat, not to sound alarmist or to scare people, but the FBI director, James Comey, said recently that we have some 900 investigations right now into ISIS-related activity on American soil. The FBI director said there are so many of these cases popping up from coast to coast in all 50 states that the Bureau can't really keep track of all of them. It is becoming an epidemic. We've seen this for a while in Europe, but the seeds are being planted here by ISIS, its supporters, and its sympathizers right here in the United States. We need to know. That's not scare tactics. It's fact. I'm merely quoting Obama administration officials. We have a major problem here. We need to deal with it over there, Pat.
Yes.
In Iraq and Syria. Crush that caliphate. You demoralize the global movement. You put a dent in the ideology. If we don't do it, we're going to have more problems.
Well, Eric, thank you for those very insightful analysis. And